Thank you for joining the Optimum Energy Thought Leadership Series with today's webinar, KiloWatt's the Problem. We are excited to have you with us as we delve into the challenges and strategies of balancing ambitious sustainability goals with the realities of aging infrastructure and budget constraints that often plague campus facilities. For those who may be less familiar with Optimum Energy or have only engaged with a portion of our capabilities, I'd like to take a moment to provide a brief overview of our organization and the value we bring across the full project lifecycle for our clients. We are a global leader in technology-enabled energy efficiency and as-a-service solutions, and we focus on the most critical aspects of energy projects, design, optimization, and ongoing performance to deliver maximum value and outcomes. What sets us apart is the strength of our technology, our people, and our approach. Our solutions span the entire project lifecycle, from design and construction to long-term operations and maintenance, with built-in strategies that transfer financial risk and support capital planning. We work side by side with clients to ensure performance, predictability, and progress toward their sustainability goals. If you have specific questions about how we can support your organization or expand a current relationship, you can schedule a time with our subject matter experts following this session. Let's get started. It is my pleasure to hand today's session over to our experts, Dave and Andy.
Let's dive in. My name is David Dykes. I'm from Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I've been in the industry since 2006, partnering with facility directors, mechanical designers, CFOs, CEOs on their quest to do their best by their facility. When I found Optimum Energy in 2019, I found a company that was energy focused, accountable, and just the right fit culturally for me. I've been traveling the US, mostly in the Southeast, since that time, finding pain and providing solutions to that pain. And exciting to be with you today.
Thanks, Dave. My name is Andy Pahwa. I'm a Senior Director of Project Development at Optimum Energy. I've been in the industry for about 15 years. My background is in energy efficiency and all things buildings related. I have, over the last few years, really honed my expertise around leveraging technology and innovative financial solutions to help solve challenges across a variety of building issues, having had a chance to work across the US as well as Europe, and now to a limited extent across Central America, seeing how our different innovations are applied in different regions and in different sectors and industries has been probably my most exciting aspect of my career so far. And so, like Dave, we're excited to talk to you a little bit about kind of what we've learned along the way and what are the most common challenges that we see our customers facing.
Great. We're going to start today with pain, with pressure. Pain typically comes first, followed by setting goals. We're going to get to goals next. Goals are set to alleviate that pain and that pressure that you feel in your organization, to manage it properly, to use your resources, use your intelligence, to use your staff, and to empower them to do the right thing by the environment, by the energy and utility budget, by OpEx and CapEx funds. A pain point specifically is a problem or challenge that a person, business or industry experiences. It represents an issue that causes frustration and inefficiency and extra cost, creating the need for a solution. Typical campus building pain that we see as we talk to many different people within organizations are things like these handful of things: deferred maintenance, retroactive versus proactive approach. Good is knowing what that is. Better is having a plan. Best is a proactive approach. But everyone has deferred maintenance needs. You probably have assets that you are directly tasked to take care of that have been on the capital budget year after year that continue to get passed up for other things, whether you're in healthcare or manufacturing or higher ed. It's an issue like all of these that causes you to stay up at night. The next one is a lack of technical expertise. Every building I go in and talk to the facility director, they shake their head at this. There are a lack of qualified people coming out of the trades, going into the trades. You're unable to pay to a competitive market in some cases, and there's turnover that happens. And when you train someone, it is painful to see them leave because you invested in them, you planned a future with them, and markets change, business changes, and the turnover of that causes a lot of pain, and needs to find a solution. The third one, being stuck with, let's call it, less than perfect partners, less than perfect contractors. You may be in a frustrating situation where you inherited a sole source decision from someone else in the past, and you have a system or a large important piece of equipment or asset that maybe you're told no one else can work on. You're still maybe handcuffed to their labor rates or their buying process, and it causes issues. It causes personal pain in dealing with that. Whether it's your fire alarm system, your automation systems, you need more people who can work on those systems and equipment, but you maybe feel stuck. Your dream of open protocols and consistency is hard to find. The next one is internal politics and bureaucracy within your own organization. No one ever deals with that, right? Wrong. It's worth fighting for. We talk about the battles we maybe fight internally for the right thing to happen, the right goal to get accomplished, and it's no fun going toe to toe in the boardroom, in the C-level suite to try to take up for what you believe is truly the right thing. Whichever level you find yourself in the organization, there's politics, and politics can be pain. Let's talk about technology risk. Making an early choice in trusting technology. I believe we've all heard being on the bleeding edge of technology. There's rewards for early adopters for sure, but there's also some hard lessons to learn. You want cohesion between existing systems, integration, data management, but buyer beware, right, Andy?
Oh yeah. I mean, I feel like when it came to technology, we were shown the dream and the promise of flying cars, and all we have are about 1,000 apps on our phone. And so here we are with tons and tons of data that comes and oozes out of all this technology that we're sold, and we're trying to figure out how to make it actionable and how reliable is it. What can you stand on, and how can you accomplish what you need to through a spectrum of avenues, everything from getting interns to do data management and data entry to trying to automate as much of that. And that in and of itself can be a big pain point that we come across very commonly throughout all of our customers.
Exactly. So those pressure points, those pain points that keep us up at night, that cause us to keep a bottle of Advil in our top drawer at the office or at home, as many of us are. So they in the best of situations push us to create goals. We want to talk a second. This is not something you haven't heard before, but let's talk about SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goals. Let's talk about writing them down and breaking them down from large goals to smaller steps, regularly tracking progress and ensuring they align with your personal values and the values of your organization. So again, everyone here has heard of SMART goals. If we could raise our hands and we're in the same room, everybody around the room has heard about it. Let's talk about this. Who do we create goals for first? We create goals for employees, for team members, for humans. We're talking about creating goals for other people who coach basketball for their teenager on the weekend, people who just got back from maternity leave, people who traveled 1,000 miles to get here over their career, or they stayed in the same state. We create goals for humans. So as we go through it, we want to consider that. Humans, you know what it's like to be a human, and you are putting goals upon humans. It's not always easy. So we need to be strategic about how we do it. We don't want to throw something out there, that causes turnover, that causes any more pain as we're trying to alleviate it already. We create goals for groups: control group, the facility and grounds team, utilities, safety, project management groups. And each are different. Each have their special quirks and internal politics, like we talked about. So consider team personal goals, group goals, and then there's organizational goals. Some goals are given to you, regardless of maybe how high you are in the organization. Everybody has a boss, right? Let these experiences you have being given goals help how you craft the goals that you give to your peers, to your employers. Consider that goals need to be repeated by the team. They need to be clear, and the SMART goal thought process will help us break that down. So let's consider what a SMART goal is: specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and time bound. Specific. Let's take that one first. In order for a goal to be effective, it needs to be specific. And specific goals answer questions like what needs to be accomplished, who directly is responsible for it, what steps need to be taken to achieve it. My manager is probably on this call right now, the person I report directly to, and I want to know from them, and I want them to hear me. I want to know how to be successful. I want to know when they look at me, at whatever interval we look together, quarterly, yearly, if I am being a successful employee. I don't want to just get by. I mean, we're all here. You took extra time to jump on an hour-long call, and that you were looking to grow your career. You're looking to be a better asset to your team. So let's be specific about our goals. Number one. Number two, let's let it be measurable. Making a goal measurable makes it easier to track and know if we've reached the goal, if we've reached that finish line, and what percentage we're into it. Use metrics such as KW reduction, percent cases solved, days without an incident, return on investment. There's tons of ways to make it measurable. Create a trackable benchmark so you know exactly where you are in your team. Metrics that can be measured. The third one, achievable. And again, we're remembering we're putting these goals on the shoulders of real people, right? Not just numbers. Hopefully enough people don't report to you where you lose count of who they are, what they're dealing with in their lives, where they come from, where they want to go. Make your goals achievable. Ask yourself, is your objective something your team can reasonably accomplish? I mean, how can you help them accomplish it? Do you particularly know the steps? Maybe you don't have to be the genius subject matter expert to define this, but understand how to get there. Have a mentor to help you set those goals. Are they achievable? The final two, relevancy. This is a stop along the road to creating the goal, to stop and ask yourself if this aligns with the bigger picture. I'd go back and read my company's mission statement or value statement. I'm sure you have one. Go back and read that statement and ask, the goals that I'm about to place on the shoulders of real humans, does it align with the bigger picture? Does it align with the board, what they set forward, what the CEO set forward, what the leadership, the top leadership wants to accomplish? How does this all point back to that? If it's relevant. Then if it's relevant, see what they think. And lastly, time bound. Always to properly measure success, you and your team need to be on the same page about when the goal needs to be reached. What is the time horizon? When will the team start creating and implementing the tasks that have been identified? Set the steps in the process, and when will they finish? What is considered great? That wraps up the goals section. Let's talk a little bit about pressures, creating goals. And today we'll muse on the idea of the distance between you and those goals. And we'll call them tightrope topics. We look at it like a trapeze, and Andy and I will tackle these. A tightrope, you have to daily walk between what you have and what you need, between reality, efficiency, and resilience. And there's risk. There's risk of falling off the tightrope. We're gonna cover that risk, but consider the analogy. And again, we tried our best to lean into the cheesy "KiloWatt's the problem." just to generate some fun. We're taking it serious, but we're also, we want to come to work and enjoy it every day. So again, tightrope topics will be a coverage between Andy and I of that walk between you and your goals on that tightrope balance, and it's a balancing act. Andy, take us into our first topic.
Absolutely, Dave. Like you said, there's tons of pressure and pain points that folks tend to deal with, and that typically leads them to want to create some sort of a change. And to create that change, they set some sort of a goal. And just that tightrope balance is kind of what we see most of our kind of near and dear customers and partners dealing with. And so just going into the first tightrope topic of just the low-hanging fruit. And we're going to start off easy here. We're not changing any minds or lives here, nothing that people haven't heard before. But there's always that low-hanging fruit. Everybody talks about it. It's always on a list for all of the different campuses and buildings and customers that we have visited. They always have that list of things that, yeah, it's an easy thing. We'll get to it. Balancing the simple efficiency wins with the broader energy strategy for driving that large impact is something that we routinely run into. And I think that most common one that we see, and I'm sure you've seen it probably more than I have even, is lighting. Lighting is that most common thing that we see on a list that, yeah, we know we need to upgrade our lighting. We've been meaning to do it. We've done some retrofits. We need to do the rest of it. We're hoping to do this at some future state. And sometimes that feels like it's such a simple thing that it might not even move the needle, but it's again, it's putting one step in front of the other, moving in the right direction. And so in terms of the solutions that we've seen of kind of along the spectrum of good, better, best, right? Because not everybody is going to be at the same place. We've got partners and customers across the entire spectrum. And so doing the good, just the very basic of just replacing and retrofitting that lighting with more energy efficient systems, whether it's at end of useful life or you're able to make that capital request to kind of go ahead and do it up front. Either way, it's just good to knock it out. Again, getting started and building that momentum is what we are trying to drive and what we try to see from our customers. Now, if you've already done that, and what's the next step? What could I do that's incrementally a little bit better than that? We've seen folks go as far as maybe doing some sort of a network controlled solution, integrating some sensors, adding some scheduling. That's taking that lighting and again, that low hanging fruit just to that next level. And so again, we're just talking about this just to give the framework as to how we think about the good, better, best across all of these kind of tightrope topics. And then in terms of the best solutions that we've seen, some of the most sophisticated customers, the ones that are really wanting to dive deep on this and maybe even be best in class, they've looked at a holistic solution. So they're looking at combining newer technologies, but with the ability to control temperature and adjust that lighting to mimic that day lighting to promote kind of a holistic health and wellness kind of aspect of things. We're starting to hear that the pendulum has swung maybe a little bit too far in one direction where everybody's retrofitting to LEDs, and by the time people leave the office or leave the facility, leave the building and heading home, they're really wired because all of that really bright white light is starting to kind of mess with people's natural circadian rhythms. And so again, in our best customer scenarios, we're seeing them go implementing very sophisticated controls, but thinking of it from a holistic standpoint of that health and wellness, again, to kind of mimic that daytime, again, with trying to maintain the safety and the required light levels, with keeping energy efficiency at the forefront, but tying in kind of that broader solution.
Great. Our second tightrope topic is managing resiliency and continuity versus cost. Backup system spare capacity comes at a premium. So who wins that? Who wins that tug of war? We all know mechanical systems break, right? They fail and they're expensive to replace. So what can bridge that gap of continuity when you have critical systems and you're measured on resiliency, and that's one of your goals. In breaking it down, good, better, and best, some good, just solid, maybe even beginner advice is defining the hierarchy of your critical and non-critical systems. If I were going into a set of buildings or a campus setup that I didn't quite have my hands on, That's maybe one of the first things I want to know is what is mission critical? What cannot go down? Where's our revenue created and generated? Where's there safety concerns? What cannot go down? And simply just define those, because not everything wakes you up in a midnight call, right? Nobody wants to get out of bed for the ice maker in the smallest dorm going down. You're not going to get out of bed for that. Another thing, do this by equipment logs, equipment status logs, handwritten by staff. I don't know how many handwritten logs I've went through over the years to just try to get a picture of how a facility might be operating. Digging inside of old, crusty equipment logs from chillers or boilers to see when the last time they were maintained. Create planned maintenance program ownership. Who actually owns it? The who, what, when, and where data can point team to the health of the equipment. It's a good place to start. You will catch some issues and prevent some failures, no doubt, but it is highly reactive. But that's a good place to start. Just an example of this, I have a friend who is, he's a facility director at a fairly large campus, and he is retiring in May, and his go-to is Excel spreadsheets. And he uses those things like nobody's business. And they have benefited him from, I think he started in '86. He has used the same process and it's worked for him, but now he's training his replacement as he's going on to better things, to fishing and boating and hunting. And the replacement is going to find their own way, but he did it in a good approach for years, and it worked for him. So that's a good step. A better step, let's talk about a little bit about fault diagnostic reporting and case management. There's software and data partners out there that can help you develop a fault diagnostic program, an FDD program for you. And some are very good at this. Some out-of-the-box FDD is a great place to start while you're developing something a little more mature and a little more customized. But some general eyes on your equipment and assets. And currently, you're maybe not worried about energy at this point. I'm just worried about when it's going to break. I'm worried about when the vibration is happening, when it's running out of oil, et cetera, et cetera. But a better thing than Excel is some smarts around it, some FDD right out of the box with a partner at fairly low cost can help you get some visibility into how resilient your systems are. There's many capable technologies that track repair cases and plan maintenance. When is the last time? Creating a case that can be seen through from your maintenance teams from beginning to end to resolution. At Optimum, I know we use a very robust one, very robust way that we track our cases and our softwares, but there's easy ways to track cases on your campus whether you deal with one building or 200 buildings. Another thing that fits into the better category is having a plan on replacing it. Develop a revolving fund to track and replace aging equipment at the 3-year, the 5-year, the 10-year marker, whatever aligns with your organization, how critical these systems are. Have a plan to replace that equipment when money is available or when financing comes to play. Let's talk about a best way to tackle this before we move on. The best way would be a constant monitoring of your assets through an AI-powered tool that would be developed to predict failure. That's out there, it's proven, and it's getting better and better and better. AI predictive failure works by analyzing historical and real-time data on equipment via sensors and operational logs to identify patterns and anomalies that would indicate potential failures. And is it perfect? No. Let's say about 85% accuracy on the norm from AI predictive failures. And 85% is better than not knowing anything at all. It's a lot better. Remove those unknowns by data-driven decision making. Consider technologies like digital twins. A digital twin is a virtual representation of a physical asset or group of assets like an electric grid or an HVAC system or a hydraulic loop that evolves over time. Imagine modeling your HVAC system and it updates continuously with live data from the field via historic data from all over the world with just a monster amount of data that humans never were able to calculate on their own. This enhances your ability to make the right decision. knowing the effects of your decisions even before you might actually make them. Powerful tool, and maybe fitting the best in class of staying resilient.
Now we're getting into the meat of things. Okay, so next tightrope topic, upgraded systems versus aging equipment. Managing the cost and the operational risk of having that aging infrastructure while trying to implement newer systems. So it's the balance between how do you keep what you have running while you're trying to upgrade and implement the new, right? And so we know that obviously upgrading energy systems would improve the efficiency, hopefully reduce operating costs, help you achieve those sustainability goals that might be set for you. But the hurdle then lies in how do we do this in our available budget? How do we differentiate between what are need to haves versus nice to haves? And so kind of along the lines of what you were talking about earlier, Dave, in terms of having that hierarchy, our kind of good baseline solution is trying to prioritize that business critical, kind of most outdated systems. And so looking at what is either going to be the most kind of critical in terms of single point of failure and starting there, or starting with what is the oldest that we almost never use and that we would need to replace, and that would kind of give us that extra kind of boost and spare capacity. In terms of the better way to approach this would be to look at this a little bit more holistically, right? So we've heard of folks getting facility condition audits done. They will then either work with a third-party consultant or whether they do this in-house themselves. Ideally, you would do this, to the extent you can on your own, because only you know how well your systems run, what the nuances are, where the quote unquote the skeletons are within the system. But that would help you as a collective team kind of strategize a phased approach of addressing those capital needs, right? And so you can start to think beyond just the 1 year kind of capital request cycle. You can start to think about things like you said previously, Dave. What do we need to do in the next 2, 3, 5, or 10 years, right? And so you start to build a little bit of a roadmap. You start having a little bit more involvement from that C-suite, either the COO or the CFO, and then you kind of embark on that phased kind of implementation approach. And then in terms of our best kind of solution, so not only do we know what we need to do with our existing systems, but this is where that facilities team and the campus operations team is thinking and aligning with maybe the more visionary folks in the C-suite, so the CEO or the president, that are thinking about what's our master plan? What is our 10-year plan, 15-year plan, 20-year plan in terms of expansion and growth? Because we know institutions, campuses, they're rarely, if ever, stagnant. They're always trying to think about how to innovate, how to set themselves apart, whether it's higher education and trying to think about student enrollment, or it is thinking about it from a research and development perspective for an academic medical center. There always are going to be grand plans that facility folks, if they could start to tie in their kind of campus renewal and upgrades with that master plan, that is what we consider to be kind of the holy grail in terms of that comprehensive approach.
Sure, for sure. Our fourth tightrope topic, we called it "Your buildings are out of control." So if you have square footage under your watch, and something is, you have building goals, you have campus goals, you're leaking energy. There's no doubt. Considering the size of your building, the campus, the size of your campus's square footage, it can get even worse. But it's impossible for us to keep eyes on everything. Let's get control of our spaces, our processes, and our buildings. There's so many resources, so much knowledge. Your square foot keeps increasing. You can't get your hands around it, and with that, there's just too much risk not to keep after those leaky buildings. So after LEDs, a good next step to tackle is getting control of your spaces and the envelope there. let's talk about the good, better, and best ways to tackle that. So you probably heard of retro commissioning, right? So retro commissioning comes through about every 5 to 10 years. And how you rank those buildings, we sort of talked about mission critical buildings, but what KW is at risk? What energy are you losing? Where are you losing it? You know, you may tackle an old building, but there may be a lab building that's 100% outside air that's coming in, or you know, maybe you're at a casino facility that's bringing in 100% outside air. You're somewhere where there's a lot at risk, or maybe it is an old building. Good looks like coming in every 5 to 10 years as you find the operational dollars and performing retro commissioning. And retro commissioning is going to hopefully take it back to the design. Now, the design is only good and as aggressive as the design engineers. The architect employed electrical, mechanical engineers to design systems that worked, not necessarily systems that worked efficiently, but to work on the hottest day of the year and to work on the coldest day. And being in the energy industry, you just sort of shrug your shoulders and be like, well, it's going to work, but how should it work? So bringing it back to design standards is a great idea. You could try to tackle this with internal team. I know we have large hospital customers that they do their best to build it with controls experts and HVAC teams. That their goal is to watch how the dampers are opening. Their goal is to measure outdoor air. Their goal is to try to keep it to the design or as best they can with their knowledge in their market. Or you can partner with plenty of external partners to come in and do traditional retro commissioning. You're going to dig through drawings, see what the intent was, and bring it back to that. What is a better way to tackle standard retro commissioning? Let's consider going in and making sure our systems have the proper sensors, the proper automation, and the proper knowledge for you to make better decisions and from your systems to make better decisions. Typical retro commissioning probably happened, and there's no addressing the controls and the automation of it. But more often than not, when your building was designed, a decent sized company probably came in and dropped in their most canned and basic programs and PID loops to meet a set point with the equipment that it was designed to meet it, with no real desire for energy efficiency. What better looks like is coming in and re-looking at every program, at the terminal unit, to the air handler, to the cooling tower, to the boiler, to the chiller, when things are supposed to stage on, stage off, open up, close down, speed up, slow down, to look at that from an energy standpoint. Make sure you're compliant with codes, but also to consider energy consumption, maybe for the first time in your building. Consider a different look at it that would involve traditional eyes and ears and engineering smarts with really deep consideration about how those systems are automated, if they are automated, and what's best. So I'm going to add to that with traditional humans and smarts, laying over top of it building automation with energy consumption in mind, and then let's layer over top of that technology that now leverages machine learning and AI technologies to always have measurement and verification on. Is it, as humans and engineers, bring it back to a really efficient point, better than it was designed? How is it staying there? What is happening in the systems where we corrected that damper, where we decided it's going to be 15% outside air at this condition and 16% at that condition? And when it was brought to a place with standard controls, let's consider putting a layer over those controls that brings in FDDs and watchdogs and watches and prevents from drift happening. You might use algorithms that decide if the chill water valve opens up more and the fan slows down. There may be scenarios like that where you want to get into really deep energy level energy conservation measures. Consider that as a best option in leveraging Humans with an energy focus and technology paired together.
All right, I'm going to hit the next couple fairly quick, just in the interest of time. So again, a very common tightrope that we see a lot of our closest partners having to kind of balance is that balance between the goals that may be thrust upon them around sustainability or decarbonization, right? Typically, some sort of a head of institution is setting that goal, hopefully having consulted facilities or campus operations teams, not always the case, but also balancing that with the realities of their budget constraints and kind of what resources they have available to them. And so how do we meet those targets while trying to stay within budget? And we're constantly kind of in that tug of war. So in terms of a good approach, kind of the more basic approach that we've seen is kind of what we referred to earlier around just focusing on what is going to be that low-hanging fruit, what is considered to be a quicker payback project. So everything from lighting upgrades to retro commissioning, like Dave just talked about, but or even exploring kind of the initial steps towards electrification, but just getting the basic X's and O's of tackling the basic things that we know are low-hanging fruit and that are out there. Now, to go kind of one step deeper and how do we maybe get a little bit beyond just doing the fundamentals, we start seeing our customers and clients looking at how do we do everything within our campus facility and operations in terms of replacing equipment that might be using high carbon fuels. So how do we get away from coal or natural gas? How do we move more to electric? So that could be anything from electric hot water systems to potentially installing a heat pump chiller. But then we also see some of those same customers also looking at how they're sourcing their energy. And so this is where we start to see customers engage with a little bit more sophistication around doing a solar through a PPA or leveraging renewable natural gas contracts. And so how are they actually procuring natural gas? How are they actually able to maybe use the space on their campus to generate solar formed electricity? And then in terms of, again, the best case solution and the best case partners, we're seeing that there is that long-term roadmap where they're starting small and they're able to snowball into the bigger and bigger projects. And so, and on top of that, they're not just doing it incrementally over 20 or 50 years. They're able to do this in fairly good bite-sized chunks over maybe a 3 to 5 year window and make a very drastic shift. And so sometimes that is everything from doing any of the things that I already mentioned, the low-hanging fruit, solar PPA, renewable natural gas, replacing some of their equipment that is at the end of useful life to something that's more energy efficient and is maybe dual fuel or maybe fully electric. But then also bridging that with some other innovative solutions like a virtual PPA. So that's basically a PPA power purchase agreement that is off-site, or using innovative financial solutions like an energy services agreement or energy as a service. And so that's a way that we've seen, again, in our best case scenarios, those most sophisticated clients being able to basically balance how do we achieve our very aggressive sustainability or decarbonization targets with our very limited financial resources and solutions. And then going along the lines of maybe what Dave was talking about a little bit earlier, we have technology and we have all the tools, galore. I think everybody gets bombarded with tons of folks trying to either sell them on a tool or a new software platform or some sort of application that is going to help them further optimize their systems. There's always going to be that fine balance between diminishing returns versus trying to leverage technology. And so we, as a technology company, very much are believers in technology, but we so often come across so many customers that are buying the 10th, 12th, 13th, 14th different solution because they're trying to chase what we would start to call those diminishing returns. And so they're adding cost, but they're not seeing the payback from the long tail of every new tool that they're trying to implement. And so when we look at optimizing through technology and kind of where that diminishing returns start, some of our kind of good solutions is starting with focus on kind of underperforming systems, and then how do we go into easily achievable energy saving measures. And so this is where we're looking at prioritizing safety first, obviously throughout any sort of campus environment, continuity of service, continuity of business. How do we keep things moving? And then we start to focus on comfort and then efficiency. And so those are typically the hierarchies that our best customers think of when they're thinking of trying to implement technology and different solutions. And then on that long tail of efficiency, trying to maybe draw a line in the sand to say, okay, this is about as good as we're going to get with our existing systems, with our existing tools. And when we are going to chase that incremental optimization, how do we do that without compromising any of the things that come before that? Within the best kind of the next step forward within using technology, we've seen implementation of continuous commissioning and real-time energy monitoring. And so this is, again, leveraging technology for what we would want a human to potentially do, but without allowing systems and performance to drift. Technology is very good at trying to keep things stable and steady, and very good at sounding alarms when things and performances are starting to drift. And so this is how you're able to not just achieve those efficiency gains, but how to maintain them over time. And so whether it's through continuous commissioning, real-time energy monitoring, and I'm sure many of you have also heard the term measurement and verification, but that's how we continuously monitor how we're performing. And then within kind of the best case scenarios, we're establishing a framework that evaluates ROI on optimization projects, ensuring the efforts remain cost effective while balancing the operational needs and the financial constraints of what you're dealing with day to day. But also it's looking at keeping the door open for any sort of future proofing. And so another kind of issue that we've seen a lot of customers run into is that they've bought into a certain system, they've bought into a certain platform, and 2, 3, 5 years down the road, when technology evolves, they're not able to implement anything new because the new technology might not be backwards compatible. And so this is where we start getting into the conversations and topics around something being open source versus a closed ecosystem or a closed environment. And we are very much kind of in favor of finding that right balance, because there are benefits to being able to do something very well within an existing platform, but also being able to maintain kind of that future capability for when times change.
Our last tightrope topic, in-source versus outsource, how to get the best out of partners and partnerships. Forming and culturing relationships with partners in which both parties win. And the Beatles years ago said it best, that they get by with a little help from their friends. And I don't know the age of this crowd, but I'm sure Taylor Swift would agree that it is still true that we have to have to get to where we want to go. We can't do it alone. No lone rangering, right? So let's jump into the good, better, and best of how to deal with partners. Because I mean, I'm not a facility director. I'm not a C-level executive, and I'm a sales partner, solutions finder, and very much have had tons of experience in being a salesperson, and I have worked with a lot of different clients. And here's some good, better, best of how to get the most out of people like myself, people like Andy, who have solutions, who have value to bring, and we maybe don't always squeeze the lemon the proper way. Let's say I don't know how to say that, but let's talk about a good way to get the best out of partners is know your goals. We started with pressure and goals. Know your goals and be able to clearly communicate with partners. A year ago, I was at a national conference and finally got a meeting with an organization I've really been wanting to sit down with. We sat down, shook hands, made introductions, passed out business cards. And the leader of that organization pulled out a paper and he slid it across the table for me and says, here's the goals of my facility group, and here's what I'm trying to accomplish. And partners that I work with understand this and quickly figure out if you can bring value to that goal or if you can't. Let's talk about it. And man, what that did for me was empower me to understand clearly what he was looking for to get to where he was going. He knew where he was going. He believed he knew how to get there. And what could we offer? What could we offer as a business partner from our engineering and technology and software and data that we brought to the table? How could we help him get there? He clearly knew his goals. So you want to do that's a really good place to be, is be able to articulate what your goals are. You want to limit your exposure to maybe risky partners. Develop a tight list of people and companies that are allowed to provide solutions. I'm going to say this: the more at risk, the tighter the list. Understand what companies really wave the flag and are cutting the edge and bringing value to businesses like yours. Understand what they're about. Understand if they align to your goals, and get them on a list. Don't let everyone come in there waving the flag, but open the door. Understand. Do your research. As a facility director, as a business leader, a better approach at this. Don't be active, but be passive. Don't be passive. Be active in these partner relationships. In meetings, definitely take meetings with new partners and new offerings. I'm not telling you not to take meetings, but you set the parameters. You set the goals, the times, and the strategies. Be prepared before you come. For partners that you've worked with for years, again, set the agenda or delegate the agenda. Are they still meeting the goals that they originally set forth? Are they meeting timelines? Are they getting things done on time? And hold them accountable. As a salesperson who works with a lot of talented people, we all want to make sure we're meeting the goal that you set for us, Mr. Business Owner, Mr. Facility Director, CFO, CEO. Be active in those meetings. New partners, old partners alike, do not be passive. And the best way to get the most out of your partner relationship, and again, as a tried and true glass half full salesperson who wants to bring the solution and always see the bright side, for you, saying no is the very best thing you can do when you're trying to find a partner, to help us qualify out, respecting of each other's time. And I'm getting used to asking potential clients when I sit down with them to make sure that I want to hear that no. I want to bring value, but if you don't see it and you don't see a path, I may never change your mind. So don't let me believe that I can. An example: last week I sat down in Ohio with a healthcare provider, and we talked about the value of the solution. We had done an energy model of their facility, and I sat down and I said, I want to be very clear about something. The very best thing for all of us to do is if we're not meeting your goals, if this solution that you don't see it accomplishing what you need, I need you to tell me no as soon as you know that. As soon as you know it crosses the threshold of, oh, we do this, we've met that, we're looking for a partner that does this, I'm sorry. You don't have to apologize. Just get straight to the no, because we only have limited time on the earth. We only have limited hours with our families to do the things that are super important. So let's consider that. Instead of chasing a dead end and letting me believe that maybe there's hope, I'm just going to be honest with you. The best thing I've ever heard is no. But when you do find that partner, and when you do, let's find a way to work with them. There's many private organizations, I'm sure on the call, many public organizations. You all have different rules and different procurement methods. When you find the partner, figure out a way to work with them. Become a procurement expert to the level that you need to be to figure out how that we can play together. You got to do hard things to get the best results, right? So leverage buying co-ops, do RFQs and qualifications instead of just RFPs looking for lowest price where you're allowed to. Know those things, and let's try to figure out how to do business when the answer is a yes. Andy, would you explain the trapeze and lifting up that safety net and take us home right here?
Absolutely, Dave. So safety net is, in terms of energy as a service, this is where we just want to introduce this concept. I think many of you have heard it. If you haven't, hopefully I'll introduce this in a way that's digestible. But knowing how many of you are trying to balance and walk that tightrope, we just wanted to kind of expose this concept of energy as a service that could help potentially be a safety net to when you're trying to deal with any of the issues and the topics that we just kind of covered. And so energy as a service, what is it? And primarily the way to understand it is that it's an alternative delivery method. Sometimes it's referred to as a public-private partnership. But the core of it is that your energy as a service provider or partner is the one that's responsible for optimizing and doing the upfront initial upgrades and capital investment, as well as managing the long-term kind of performance of an energy system. So if you think of a central utility plant or district energy system, your energy as a service provider would be the one to not only help you develop what the solution is, how and what needs to be upgraded, but also is your partner and provider for all things related to financial capital investment, the design, the construction, the commissioning, as well as the long-term O&M of that entire system. And the reason why this is so attractive to universities, campuses, public institutions is they are not necessarily always in the business of being experts of energy systems. And so they are always looking for a little bit of help in terms of trying to transfer that risk. And so that risk is anything from premature equipment failure, catastrophic equipment failure, not knowing when something might go down. We know that very often facilities and campus operations teams are dealing with equipment that they know is beyond its useful life. They just don't know when it's going to go down, and they're competing with that capital request cycle. And so energy as a service is a way to kind of put a financial wrapper to, again, any of the challenges that any of you folks might be dealing with. A couple of things that I want to call out. So for higher education, public-private partnership, there is an advisory firm, Brailsford and Dunleavy. They advise and assist and program manage a lot of P3 energy-based projects. They also help higher education institutions with everything from student housing to master planning and so on. And so they publish a 2024 State of the Industry Higher Education P3 report. I encourage all of you to look that up, to Google it. And you'll see in that over the last year, within 2024, there were 26 transactions done across 32 colleges and universities. So this is not as niche as some of you might think. It's becoming more and more prevalent as a way to get larger projects done and to, again, tackle kind of large capital upgrades and infrastructure needs in one fell swoop. Just some of the benefits on the kind of quantifiable side, the real technical CFO engineering types might care about. It is a streamlined procurement. So to Dave's point earlier about trying to become a procurement expert, this is kind of becomes your easiest one-stop shop in terms of procurement. You do one procurement process for your energy as a service provider, and then everything downstream of it when it comes to finding your engineer and your architect and your GC and so on and so forth, all falls under the responsibility of that energy as a service provider. That being said, you do have the ability to provide input on who those partners might be. And so that's where that energy as a service provider kind of works in partnership. And then within the kind of financial benefits, again, there's no upfront capital investment from the institution side. The energy as a service provider is the one that is meant to make the entire capital upgrade upfront. And then I think the most attractive thing, maybe the last two most attractive things are that it is financially forecastable. And so it is a predetermined kind of fixed payment over whatever the term of that project is. once that project once the system is kind of put online or the system is commissioned. And then again, to the CFOs and out there, anybody who understands how important and critical this could be, it is essentially structured to be off balance sheet. And so what that really means is that large institutions can continue to go and borrow money to do other things that are more core to their business, whether it is, again, within higher ed and trying to figure out how to improve that student enrollment, student experience, improve research and all of those types of institutions, but preserving their balance sheet without having to put it towards energy and infrastructure, and being able to focus on their core mission is something that we find is very, very attractive to customers. And then again, on the intangible side, that kind of 100% risk transfer. So when it comes to equipment, the delivery of the project, so the design, build, the construction, all of that risk, change orders, GMPs, all of that risk lies with the energy as a service provider, as well as that long-term operations and maintenance. So any warranty issues, premature equipment failure, replacement of that equipment during the life of the agreement, all of that again lies with that energy as a service provider. So just wanted to kind of tie that to some of the things that we talked about before, introduce the concept, hopefully tease out some of the benefits that might be of interest to folks out there. Again, if you have any questions around this, happy to take them.
Thank you to both of our experts for this insightful session, and to all of you for joining us today. We hope this session has provided greater clarity into the challenges and strategies that go into balancing ambitious sustainability goals with the realities of aging infrastructure across your campus facilities. If you have questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to either David or Andy, or visit us at OptimumEnergyCo.com.